But one of the key partners when it comes to this summit, and has to be Media Monitoring Africa. And we do have Thandi Smith here with us to talk about all these important issues. Thandi, we know that when it comes to disinformation, Media Monitoring Africa has been really at the forefront in calling out, in calling for mechanisms to be put in place to really try and stop the proliferation of all these concerns.
Yes, disinformation, as we know, is not a new phenomenon. But what we've seen play out over the last few years is the sort of absolute infiltration of disinformation across platforms, and the access to those platforms that we now see and the sort of information chaos that is there has enabled the disinformation to go viral, to reach a far greater audience. And we've seen how disinformation, especially during an election period, but we've seen how disinformation can really have that direct threat to the functioning of a democracy. We've seen how disinformation that intersects with things like incitement to violence or racist speech can have a real on-the-ground harm and potential violence just by disinformation going viral. So Media Monitoring Africa has been working with a number of different partners in order to raise awareness and to implement mitigation strategies and solutions in combating disinformation.
Thandi, let's look at the role by the media. Obviously, G20 summits, the leaders will come to our shores, see the beauty of South Africa. So the journalists really will be at the forefront in telling this story. Let's look at the significance of that.
I think at this particular, point in time, if you look at our very fractured, tense global political, environment, the fact that South Africa is hosting the G20 this year is quite a landmark. And I think, the difficulty that journalists and media will have is being able to balance that global perspective on, the issues of the G20, but also ensure that our local issues and the local, challenges are also brought to the fore. And, things like the M20 Summit, that isn't an official G20 working group, but it is going to provide that the groundwork for the issues that the media environment is facing, and to help bring those messages forward to the G20 platform.
And just before I let you go, Thandi, obviously the declaration, a very key one. We've just had an undertaking from the minister that the leaders will have the declaration. For MMA, what should be the main issues there?
Main issues: information integrity, media viability, safety of journalists, and, the supporting the truth and accuracy in the media. But I think, as we heard the commitment about from the minister taking the declaration forward, we want to actually see that being implemented. It's one thing when we hear commitments and promises being made, but to actually raise that declaration to the right people who will be able to take the action needed. The declaration also calls on media, civil society, businesses, as well as G20 leaders and heads of state. So if we can see the declaration having the kind of impact and traction that it needs, we absolutely welcome commitments from those in power to assist with taking the declaration to the correct platforms.
All right. Thandi, thank you so much indeed for your time. Of course, that's Thandi Smith, with Media Monitoring Africa. So a very important moment for the media fraternity here in South Africa. So many global players are here as well, the policymakers, and we're going to hear from so many speakers really talking about all these pertinent issues. And most importantly, what has been really a very key issue here is it's about the very significant role played by the free press in exposing those stories, but safeguarding the very sacrosanct and a very important role played by the media, especially when it comes to G20, among other things. So with that, back to you in studio.
All right, Khayelihle Khumalo, all such important issues for now. Khayelihle reporting live to us from Melrose Arch.